Jim was talking about Zach being limited and, 2020, you could see that going forward. Is he dealing with anything, or is it, what?
Zach's good to go. Yeah, he, we take pride in taking care of the guys, and we wouldn't start a player in a game who wasn't totally healthy and ready to play at his best. So I think, like it's been said before, you do your best to make sure that the pace that guys are playing at as best as you can is sustainable, to try to play 13, 14, 15 games in a season. So like at other positions, there's an element of that at running back too.
What indicated to you guys that 33 carries against Army was too much for him?
Just like, with all due respect, it's just kind of common sense. Like, you as a running back, you don't want that. But there's times in a game where, like, you kind of can get in a situation where it's a little bit unavoidable, and you can look at guys' careers in different colleges and in the NFL. There's outliers like that, all over the place. It's happened at Michigan in the past. It's just the kind of thing that it can happen sometimes, and it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It's just, hey, that happened, and it's maybe not the most ideal thing.
Was that something you guys were conscious of as it was happening, like during was it even at the forefront of your mind? I guess that hey, maybe this guy's running a little bit too much at this time.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. A couple factors go into that. A, you don't think you're going to get that many snaps.
Sure.
Against Army, I think we might have had the most or the second most in several years against them. So that's part of it. And then the other aspect is, like, you're obviously looking at him. How is he playing? Talking to him. How do you feel? Observe him, and like I mentioned before, you make your best. You do your very best as a coach to make sure you're taking care of guys, and you got your antennas up for a guy being banged up or whatever. And we're not going to put a guy in position to get himself hurt or make an injury worse or go back into the game, if it's putting him at risk. So you certainly do. And, there was, in the course of the game, there's no reason to say, hey, this shouldn't be happening,
What's the key then to avoiding getting in situations where you have to give a guy 33 carries?
Really, you want to make sure that the guys that are behind him are ready to play and ready to play well at a high level. If you have that in your room and it comes to life on that Saturday that the second, the third, or fourth guys or whatever are ready to rock and are going to play good and make the most of their opportunity, then you can avoid that.
What was the key then with Christian and Hassan to get them ready to get snaps in the last two games after Army, where we mostly just saw Zach?
Yeah. So those guys really just back to work. There's certain things that they needed to focus on and get more mental reps, actual physical reps. At making sure that they're ready to see in the game, and I think a lot of it's just the nature of, like, young and inexperienced players that it sometimes happens like that. None of those guys have played very many snaps in live action, so it probably is a little less surprising to us than it maybe is to the outside that something like that could happen.
Hassan played particularly good, it looked like, from his most production that he's had so far. Where have you seen him grow the most since he first came on campus?
That's tough. I mean, he's doing really good, like you said. He's playing on all the special teams. He's been an impactful guy in those areas in terms of playing fast, being a physical presence. He's a remarkably powerful guy, even more so than he looks sometimes. He generates a lot of force, and it's great to see him being himself, playing fast, playing physical. You see him kind of falling forward at the end of runs and picking up blitzes and stuff. So all of that is kind of the vision we had for him, which is great. And it's excited to see him come back to offense, put in the work to know the playbook, know his protections, and then go out and execute and be reliable. I don't think many people could really appreciate how much work that takes to flip sides of the ball and learn a new scheme, and it's really just a credit to him, all the work that he put in behind the scenes.
What's the conversation with Zach like when you discuss carries? Because I imagine he wants maybe more than the 5 he got Saturday, but probably less than the 33 he got a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Zach is a very unselfish, just team guy, and you know, he's not one to really ask for anything for himself. He's looking for ways to help the team and do whatever he can do to help out his buddies in the running back room. So, you know, all of our guys are really like that. There's nobody complaining. There's nobody, you know, causing a scene because they don't, in their mind, they didn't get what they wanted or whatever. Everybody knows that, like, we got a real long-term vision and what it's going to take to get to where we want to go to.
You
The way,
mentioned,
with the way that college has influenced the NFL and, you know, kind of you guys installing more of a college-based offense, I mean, how much value do you think is attached to the, you know, coaching in the NFL and coming down to college, like your father, yourself, I mean, even, you know, having been in the NFL, I mean, how much value do you think that there still is, you know, in having that NFL coaching experience?
Like how much value in the sense of like doing a good job?
Well,
or
just
like
in general, like
recruiting, or-
scheme, everything that's involved in the NFL, and just, you know, transferring it to the college level.
I think it's valuable. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to say, hey, that's better. That's a better way to do it, or that
Yeah.
it's worse. The two games have a lot of differences, maybe more so than a lot of people realize. But you know, at the end of the day, it's still the same fundamentals that will win and lose most games, and you know, I'm not sure.
I mean, do you think you're a little bit more aware of like matchups, I guess, from a person? I mean, that's something that's, I guess, kind of drilled in at the NFL level. I mean, is that something that you think you guys have been able to apply at the college?
I know what you're getting at. To me, that exists in you know, in both leagues. Sometimes even more in college.
Yeah.
You know, because in the NFL, you know, you don't play against the 18-year-old maybe who's like never played.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's that is present in both sides.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know that one is necessarily one mode of getting into college is better than the other.
you said there are areas the running backs needed to work on, you know, get more carries. Is pass protection one of the key?
Yeah, that's a huge key for really anybody. I would bet that anybody anywhere in the country that's not playing much as a running back, you know, that's probably one of the reasons. You know, protecting your quarterback is really the second priority after taking care of the ball. So anybody that's not taking care of the ball and not taking care of the quarterback, it just becomes really hard to get them on the field, just because those are the two most important things you got to do. And if you're not up to par in that regard, it's really hard to move the ball and to win. So you know, those guys just making sure that they're putting good stuff on tape in practice, that they know what they're doing mentally, they're taking care of the ball in practice. Nothing goes further in building trust than that, and they've done a really good job. You know, some guys were better to begin with, but the guys who had a hard time in camp or a hard time in the first couple of weeks have come a long way too.
How has Christian progressed in that area?
Really good, really good. He's a guy who, you know, he can take a you know, a bad play and he can move on from it and then use it as fuel from Sunday to Friday of, hey, I want to look at this extra, you know, film. I want to go through this extra walkthrough, whatever. I want to put in the work to try to make sure that doesn't happen again. And you know, a lot of people talk about, oh, he missed this block or that block, and you know, that does happen. But you also, a lot of people don't realize, hey, he actually picked up 5 blitzes in the last game or a few in the game before that, whatever it might be. So there's strides being made, and a lot of times it's sad because that gets lost to the outside because you're just looking for a young man to blame, you know, on Twitter and all that. And you know, these kids, they work their butts off to try to improve their weaknesses, and it's a long season. So I think you can underestimate how good or how much improvement you can make over a 3 or 4 month span.
Christian was talking yesterday about knowing that maybe a goal going forward for you guys is diversifying the carries a little bit, and how he was talking about the level of competition in practice. Maybe there's more of a sense of urgency now because of that. How have you seen that evolve since maybe spring to now?
It definitely has been good. The competition in practice, like you're saying, or like Christian referenced. I don't know that it's that much better. I mean, maybe it is, but they've pretty consistently competed and pushed each other, and you know, maybe there's a little more juice to it now, but it's really fun to watch when those guys are taking every rep in practice and running the ball, 25, 35, 40 yards, and trying to make it the very, very best run possible and treating it like a game. If you do that, I think everybody knows the results are going to be, it's going to be a lot more natural on Saturdays, making that last guy miss or breaking that extra tackle. So those types of habits are something we value in our room, and I hope it continues to show up in the games.
Christian mentioned he was out of high school, had a lot of Division I running backs, and kind of forced in competition early on for him. What stood out to him about a recruit, and then how do you think that shaped him into the college player he is now?
So, like you said, his high school experience was different than a lot of guys, and it shows up in the way that, like, he wants to practice hard, he wants to compete hard. He wasn't looking for anything to be handed to him. We don't have very many guys like that in general on our team, but like he's maybe a rarity in the sense that he's a running back who comes in and isn't shocked when he doesn't get the ball 40 times. A lot of guys are like that. Zach isn't, Hassan wasn't, Christian wasn't, and we're really lucky in that regard because we don't deal with that. Probably coming from that background was probably a big reason why.
Jim talked about substitution issues. I mean, is there, I guess, an effort maybe to streamline the personnel and maybe get a fixed rotation where, that you have maybe, three guys instead of maybe 6 or 7 or such at any given position group?
Yeah, we want to try to make everything as streamlined as possible. I think sometimes in a game where if you're up by a lot,
Yeah, sure.
you can run into some problems that, maybe don't happen in like a 14-14 game
Yeah.
in the fourth quarter. Some of that's just the nature of the situation. But certainly we want to make sure that in practice we're crisp with guys going in and out, and if you're practicing with noise, being able to communicate and get the right guys on the field in a timely manner. So it's something that we always try to get better at, and we're not ever looking or okay with any procedural type of penalties.
How does that work in the heat of the moment in terms of figuring out who's in the game? Like, are you tracking snaps for guys and saying to Josh, like, hey, let's use this guy on this drive, or is that something Josh is doing? How does that work?
In terms of the running back position, or
Yeah,
like?
yeah, running back.
Yeah, so for the running backs, a lot goes into it, but Josh is really supportive of all the position coaches in terms of, hey, this guy's, he needs a break, or this guy, hey, you called, X play, and oh man, this guy, I really feel like he's going to get the job done on this. And most of the time, by the time you get to Saturday, that guy has also practiced that, 4 or 5 times, and maybe another guy only did it once or something like that. And so you want to try to get guys in position doing the stuff that they're good at, stuff they've done before. And, we do it a lot, so you just kind of, you get used to knowing what Coach Gat's thinking and getting the appropriate guys in there to execute.
Several of the players said they liked having Josh on the sideline. Make a difference for you?
No, I mean, I like having him down there too. I don't know that it made a difference personally for me. I thought it was positive though, and I thought our guys, between series, being able to look them in the eye and connect with them and talk about specifically, hey, this is what we're thinking about going to first play, second play, third play, the next drive. I think that's a positive thing.
Chris just said that he was impressed with how Jim brought the team together, the coaches together after the Wisconsin loss. What was your impressions of how he kind of rallied the team together after that loss?
Really, it's just about what's the task at hand, and the world we're in. It wants everything to collapse and people to just quit and go and drive the cars away and we'll see what happens in the next few games. And he's able to sit us down and just say the focus is on Rutgers, and that's really the only thing that matters, not anything that anybody else is saying, and really just reassuring everybody that let's just get back to meeting, get back to practice, and focus on Rutgers, and everything will be good. So that's consistent with his message after a 52-0 win, as well as the Wisconsin game. It's really not any different, but having that kind of leadership that's consistent like that you can lean on and know, okay, this is the direction we're going, it's really nice as a coach and as a player.
We have time for one or two more.
How do you feel about the Bills going around about players potentially being able to compensate from their image and likeness?
I can't say that I know enough to want to comment on that. I think if anyone does from here, it should probably be the head coach or player who maybe it affects more directly.
Christian mentioned last night might be at least somewhat of an incentive if you were a recruit down the road, and one state can offer this and one state can't. You recruit California, I think Florida has something going through it. Do you sense any recruiting impact? Do you anticipate anything? Too early to tell?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's pretty far away. I would just be curious if it ever really got to that where you're playing against teams that are under different rules than you. That doesn't seem, I don't know much, but that doesn't seem like that would be super likely. But I'm more worried about Iowa.
What are your impressions of Dax?
Daxton Hill?
Yeah.
I love him. He's awesome. He just very businesslike, very mature. In the sense that he is really focused on being really good and the team being good. And as a young guy to come in and not have any lag time of just having to figure stuff out, it's been pretty cool to watch. And he also practices like a maniac and is really takes coaching. So when you watch a game, like the week before, there was a couple plays that he didn't make, and then you watch the next week and he makes them. It's really cool, and it's why coaches love doing their job, to see a guy, go out and fix his mistake and get that satisfaction from putting the work in is pretty cool, and he's just one of many examples of that.
So he zeroes in on the mistake? That's what you mean by being a maniac and practicing?
Yeah, he's maniacal, just speed and focus and intensity, and if you give him something to do, he'll get it done. Appreciate it.